in the context of Bangalore, we have a lot of young married couples, newly married couples. And before marriage, they were very independent. They handled their life, their weekends, their finances. So once they are married, they have their set of friends, have a set of expenditure before marriage. But that a pattern does not set in to do things together with the family. So can you explain, especially for a young couple, this leaving and cleaving, including finance, time, friends? Can you just throw some light onto that?
Well, this whole aspect of leaving, cleaving one flesh is part of the covenant. It is not something that Adam told to Eve, I will now leave my parents. It was God who said, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Now, the first part of that whole covenant is for this reason. If you really look at where all this is quoted, you see this word therefore or for this reason also quoted. When you usually quote, you don't quote the conjunction therefore or for this reason. But this, when it is quoted by Jesus and by Paul in the New Testament, it is quoted with therefore. So I believe there is something important about the word therefore also there. When God created, Eve after Adam, and Adam said this wonderful poem, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, and all that. So, and then God probably is so excited watching, this guy now throwing his poem out when he saw this beautiful, woman that is out of him. He's saying, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, and then God, watching this, declares, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother. Why I'm explaining that is, now, there is something that prompted God to make that statement. To see that oneness that was achieved, God is saying, hey, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother. So, what I wanted to say here is, I want to emphasize the fact that as we enter into marriage, the first part is, we have to leave all those things that, we are being attached to, including our father and mother. And that is the closest connection we would have. By the way, when God declared that there was no father and mother, so God in his wisdom knew when father and mother comes, what will happen to this whole thing. So he said, for this reason, a man shall leave. What is this reason? The reason of their love and intimacy. A man has to leave. So if you want to achieve this, what you said now, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, if that kind of a oneness have to be achieved, there has to be a leaving that has to happen. And for that, there is two sides of it. One is also parents have to understand, they have to release the children as well. So, leaving, I would say, is about a conscious decision you are making to give up on all smaller, relationships or even smaller priorities to something that God has ordained, for you to now become one flesh. And that requires some sacrifice, because in every leaving there is grieving.
Yes.
There is some grieving when you leave anything, So that leaving has to happen. And if you don't have that mindset, if you still want to hold on to everything of what you have and what is it, and then enter into it, cleaving will be affected. Because the word cleaving means it's actually being glued to one another. It's like putting a glue and sticking, if you want to remove it, you will tear. If you stick to paper and if you want to remove it after some, it will tear. It will tear both actually. So being glued to one another, if that glue has to be really in its fullness operational, then this leaving has to be also operational. So I would say, yes, if you are entering into the covenant of marriage, be prepared to leave and cleave. And that's when the one flesh can be enjoyed, And one flesh is a mystery. How we become suddenly one flesh is a mystery. It's about how God brings us together. So this is what I would say, off my mind.
Yeah, I just want to add that, the primary relationship with our parents is taking a drastic turn. And that's why we give out wedding cards to people. That's why we invite people. We are publicly declaring that my primary relationship with my parents is changing on such and such a day. My primary relationship is going to become this man. And he's from this family. And so many people come to witness that transition. But we don't make that transition emotionally. Though we do it physically, emotionally we struggle to let go of the bonding we have with our parents. And so I would say definitely as young couples, one of the things you have to prepare for is the detachment to attach.
Yeah.
That is leaving and cleaving. If we do not emotionally detach, we are not saying abandoning your parents.
Right.
We want to make this very clear here. So young people, this is not abandoning families. Whether it's his parents or my parents, we will not abandon them. Somewhere culturally there is a mindset, only the husband's parents are, honored or taken care of. And I want to say this as a clarification, that our calling is to honor both sets of parents. So a lot of fear is there in youngsters when we talk about this word leaving and cleaving. Leaving is an emotional detachment so that you can emotionally connect to your spouse. And I think God has designed this in us. As you become teenagers, there is a little bit of detachment you have from your parents. You're beginning to become independent. And I think God has kind of planned it in the way He designed us as human beings. Right? And so that we can attach at the right time to the spouse that God brings to us. So I would say that leaving and cleaving is that a detachment to attach. But don't abandon your parents, please. Honor them, care for them, love them, do everything that we have to do.
So that it will go well with you.
Yeah, there is
that's a promise.
There is a promise to that word.